Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Think Tank Thursday. I'm Candy Kelly, and I am your host for this week. On Thursdays at TrainerTainment, we like to take a little bit of time away from the doing and spend a little bit of time thinking. This Think Tank is brought to you by our wonderful 2021 digital sponsors, which you can see on the side there. We've got Embed and Creative Works and People First, Party Center Software, Hagar Communications, Simnox, and Redemption Plus. We love all of them, and this would not be able to come to you each week if it wasn't for them. We have a repeat guest this week. It's so exciting, and she's a digital sponsor. So why don't you take a few minutes to tell everybody who you are, what People First is, and like what you do.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be back with TrainerTainment, and I kind of wear a couple of hats because not only am I the CEO of People First, but I also assist in I'm kind of like a CFO for TrainerTainment. So I'm part of the family as well as being another entity. And People First provides payroll, human resource, benefits administration, bookkeeping services to those small businesses that can't afford to have those senior level positions full-time, full staff. So anytime anyone needs payroll information or needs help with payroll, human resource assistance with COVID, what are we doing right now? How do we deal with our people? What are the requirements? Can we require vaccinations? Those kinds of things, we're there to help. Benefits administration, if you're able to offer benefits to your employees, we can take care of that piece for you, as well as bookkeeping. We'll take all that disorganized receipts, get them organized so that your CPA can take care of your taxes and you can do your financial planning.
Sounds like you've worked with quite a few business owners with those disorganized receipts.
Absolutely. I've worked with folks who hadn't filed tax returns in a few years, and that's for me, who is very detailed and follows all the rules. You didn't file your tax returns. We get everyone put together so that they get back on track and eliminate all those issues with the IRS.
Awesome. Yes. And we love Barb being part of our team and helping us keep all of that stuff straight, because it's not my strength or Beth's strength at that. So this week we're talking about a very kind of specific part of HR. We wanted to narrow it down. And so this week we thought about talking about job descriptions. We know a lot of you are looking to hire, if not right now, in the coming weeks to get ready for opening season and the busy season as we start to spring back and open back up. So I don't know, we learn a lot of times that people don't always have a job description and they don't have something to show somebody when they hire them. And so we thought it was a good idea to bring Barb on to talk about that. So Barb, really, what is a job description?
Well, a job description is something, when you say recruiting and we don't have something to show the person, you actually need a job description before you even recruit. You need to know what you're looking for. Does that person, what's the education that's required of that person? How much math knowledge do they have to have? How much reading do they need to know? Interpretation, reasoning skills, working conditions, all of those things are components of a job description. So that is the first step. Before you run your ad, your language from your employment ad should come from the job description. So that's the basis for recruiting. Anybody who's a recruiter knows I need to know what the job entails, what the duties are, what the requirements are, so I can actively recruit to put the right person in the right seat. It also helps with compliance. The Department of Labor wants to make sure that you're properly paying that person. How do you determine that? From the job description. Is that position exempt or non-exempt? You can't determine that unless you have a job description. Without it, the Department of Labor could come in, do an audit, and you could be zapped with penalties and fines for not properly paying employees. The other thing is compensation. How much do I pay this person? Well, you have to match it to other companies that have those same types of positions. How do you know whether you're comparing apples to apples if you don't have the written job description in front of you to say, this position does this, what other position out there in the market does the same thing, and how much is that position paying in that organization, to get you to know and have a feel for what you should be paying internally in your organization. So really, a job description is the basis. Before you have an employee, you should have a job description. That's what I say. And I preach that.
Got it. I did catch a sentence that you said though, language for your ad should come from your job description. So we sometimes see people almost think that the job description can be the ad too, but a job description is not going to get anyone excited about the job. You should get them excited first, right?
Well, you should take the language from the job description and tweak it to make it exciting.
And then they can learn more. Oh, I'm excited. I'm interested in this job. What does this job entail? And then they dive into the job description to see if they want to apply.
Right, exactly.
Got it. So job description is not an ad. It's not sexy enough to get anyone to click apply now for you.
Correct. Yes.
All right. So I need to build a job description. Like, how do I put that together? What's its structure look like? How does it work?
I got you. Let me just give you a little bit of background. I started out in personnel many years ago before the term human resources existed. And when I started, my boss recognized I majored in German and Spanish. So let's face it, I didn't major in HR or personnel. But my first job was to work as a personnel assistant for an electronics manufacturer. My boss quickly recognized my passion for people and encouraged me to get my master's degree in HR. My master's in HR, I had to have a thesis. Well, my master's thesis was a career development program for the company. And the first step in that program was to write job descriptions. And I was so blessed to be in that company because the support I got from all the senior management was amazing. They let me sit on production line to see exactly what assemblers did. I went to the engineering department and I watched the engineers work. The company produced interference blankers and power supplies for the F-14. This was in the 80s when the F-14 was a new and up and coming. It's now been retired. But I got to sit with the drafters and the CAD designers. And then I would go to the machine shop and watch the guys build the boxes that the electronics went into. And I sat in the marketing department, in the sales department, in the accounting department. Everyone let me observe all the positions and I was able to write those job descriptions. So the structure then is there's 5 components to a job description. There is the heading. That's where you identify the title, the department, who the position reports to, and the FLSA status. Now that's the Fair Labor Standards Act. That is what determines whether a position is paid exempt or non-exempt of overtime. So sometimes people use salary and hourly. Well, it's really exempt and non-exempt from paying overtime. The job description defines that. So that status is typically listed in the heading, whether it's a non-exempt or exempt. There's also the summary, which gives you a brief overview of the duties and responsibilities, what the overall picture is of that job within that organization. You've got the duties that list specific essential duties and responsibilities of the job. And then the specifications and qualifications, which are education, experience, math skills, reading skills, writing, computer, licenses, if the job requires a specific license, and then special demands, what the work environment's like. Do they have to, and physical demands, have to climb a telephone pole? Do they have to wear a 80-pound pack on their back if they're a firefighter? So those are the 5 components that make up the job description.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit more about exempt or non-exempt? So it's not just choosing that I want somebody to be salary so I don't pay them overtime anymore.
No, it's not up to the business owner or anyone in the organization or a manager to say, oh, we're going to pay them a salary, or we're going to make them an independent contractor. That's a whole other think tank topic. But yes, the exempt means that the position is defined by the Department of Labor. If you go on the Department of Labor's website, they have fact sheets that actually define who is exempt and who is non-exempt. And how you determine whether your job is exempt or non-exempt is from the job description, and you compare it to what the Department of Labor says. And that determines whether the job is exempt from overtime, meaning you pay a person a salary to do a job, not to pay them by the hour, or it's non-exempt, meaning they're required to receive overtime for any hours worked over 40 in a week. Some states have other rules. California and some of the Western states require over 8 in a day, but in federal law is over 40 in a week, you're required to at least pay time and a half. That job, then the individual is paid to work by the hour. So that's the difference between exempt and non-exempt. And again, it's up to the Department of Labor. So I always say, I advise, when in doubt, err on the side of caution. The position should be non-exempt, because then you're covered. You're okay.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think that that's important to point out, because I'm not sure everyone knows that. Just like years ago when I was in operations and we were helping people open their businesses, there are people who didn't know that time and a half was 40 hours in a single week. They'd be like, yeah, they worked 44 hours that week, but they didn't exceed 80 hours in the pay period, so I don't have to pay them overtime. I'm like, that's not how that works.
No, right. Right. You need a company, an organization needs to define their work week, which is 168 consecutive hours. That's 7 times 24. So you need to have that definition of what your work week is. And then that's how you gauge whether somebody works 40 or more or less. If they work 44 this week, they're getting 4 hours overtime. If they only work 36 hours next week, they'll get 36 hours pay.
Got it. All right. So I'm sure that you've seen mistakes in job descriptions. What happens if you, like, what are the ramifications of those mistakes?
Well, I have a passion for HR. So, and I'm not a salesperson. I guess a salesperson would say that's when you call people first, and we'll be happy to write them for you. But I would recommend you not try to do it yourself. Get someone who knows what they're doing in this realm to write those job descriptions for you. Because if you were to make mistakes, you could have, I've already mentioned the Department of Labor. They could come down on the organization for improperly classifying based on a job description, whether the job is exempt or non-exempt. There's also equal pay. If you compare jobs and you look at the values, you might be discriminating against gender. You might be, equal pay means that individual male and female should be paid the same pay for the same type of work. Now, I'm not talking about length of position or performance. Obviously, there can be differences there. But in the old days, back in the day, there were actually employment ads written for men and for women. And the job basically was the same, but yet the pay was higher for the man than the woman. For example, a janitor and a housekeeper. Janitor would be paid more than a housekeeper, whereas the job itself did the exact same thing. So you need to be careful under the Equal Pay Act, which is legislation that all employers must follow. Then you've got the Equal Employment Opportunity in Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, where you now not only have gender, but you also are looking at protected classes. Are you paying minorities the same as you are paying, the unprotected classes? That deals with age and race and color and in some cases, sexual orientation, and that may be coming up under federal law. That there may be an amendment to that as things change and as things develop. You've also got OSHA, defining the working conditions and the environment and climbing ladders and things like that. And then the Americans with Disability Act. That would, if a job requires a specific task that someone who might qualify under the ADA, is that truly an essential function of the job? So you could get yourself in trouble by improper language where the ADA may come in and address those issues. So compliance, job descriptions can get you in a lot of trouble if not written properly. And again, you want an expert to help them.
I have a follow-up question there. What about, like, not just ADA? I understand that you have to define the essential functions of the job for that to work, but just general expectations. For instance, putting that, like, you need a master's degree and 10 years to be a general manager. Like, you don't need a master. Like, that's not actually a necessary part to perform some of the jobs out there. So how much in alignment should you be careful about those things, the expectations you put on there, and really what's needed?
Well, under education, you've always got the clause in there. There's 2 things that you always make sure you have in a job description. May be required to perform other duties as assigned, so that somebody can't come back to you and say, oh, it's not in my job description, I'm not doing it. And the other thing is, under education, you will list the education, but you will also say, or equivalent experience. Because I know many people who do not have a master's degree, but can do certain jobs, not all jobs. There are certain professional positions like an attorney, medical doctor. You certainly want a medical doctor to have gone to medical school. and had gotten their doctorate there. But there are certain jobs that don't require, they don't require a high school diploma. There is actually a case, it's Griggs versus Duke Power, where an electric company required all employees to have a high school diploma. They did not need to have that high school diploma. And so this gentleman, Mr. Griggs, sued Duke Power and won. And that case brought about what's called adverse impact. Adverse impact is a practice an employer does that causes indirect discrimination. So by requiring somebody to have a high school diploma to do a position where it's not really necessary, you are creating adverse impact, meaning those folks, underprivileged folks who may not have been able to go to high school but could actually do the job, would be discriminated against and not be able to hold that job because of something that the company is requiring that's not necessary.
Got it. I also, from a personal standpoint and what I am reading, I feel that college education is still important, but may not be as important in the future as you see things like coding schools set up that will teach you specifically what you need to do coding things, or different, I've seen other types of schools set up where you go with them for 2 years, you can have this very specialized education, and then they help you find a job in that field, but it's not your traditional college education and college degree there.
Right. We used to have a saying that the degree indicated that the person was teachable, but not necessarily what the degree was in, but that they actually got the degree. They spent the 2 years or the 4 years or 5 years or however long, but they were teachable. And then, of course, a degree in marketing they're going to have taken courses and maybe done some internships where they could bring some new, fresh ideas to the table. But again, organizations are looking to have people to be able to mold them into to fit into their organization, to fit into their culture. A lot of traits are more important now than the actual degree too, because not everybody is the right fit in the right organization, not just the job, because of their characteristics.
Yeah, I'm sure. I wonder what the statistics are about people who have a degree in one thing but totally are working somewhere else. My degree is in psychology with minors in business management and sociology. So
my degree is in German and Spanish, but I do have my master's in HR. But yeah, that was always I teach HR. I've been teaching it for 18 years now, and it always comes up at least one class. I asked everybody, how many of you, when you were 10 years old, said I want to grow up and be an HR director? Typically, your HR folks are very few actually have a bachelor's degree in human resource management. It's somebody who has a passion for people, and they kind of fall into the role. So yeah.
I know this topic came up in another think tank I did with Kevin Williams, where it was like, people don't even know all of the jobs that exist in the world. Like, there are so many jobs, and when you're little, it's like doctor, veterinarian, teacher, like all of the classics. But then, like, you grow up and you're like, that's a job, and that's a career, and that's a career, and those are options like you don't even realize when you're younger.
I wanted to be an astronaut when I was in middle school. So.
Yep, I grew up wanting to be a lawyer because I'm pretty good at speaking my mind. All right. So I get it written correctly. I know what legal ramifications happen in the mistakes, but beyond from those departments, how else does it protect me? Does a job description protect me?
Well, in unemployment claims, if you have an employee who is not able to perform the job, in most cases, that's a win for the employee, but the job description will define what the requirements are of the job. So it protects you with unemployment. A lot of times if you have workers' comp audits, the workers' comp auditor will want to see the job descriptions to make sure the jobs are properly classified so that the employer is paying the proper rates based on the job codes, because every job has a code that's it's a national code. And those codes are what define the premiums for each code. So it's not a matter of going to 5 different insurance carriers and saying, how much do I pay for this job? A clerical job is going to have the same rate based on the area as well, and as based on experience. So workers' comp, unemployment, disciplinary matters. You can actually say they're not doing this part of the job. Without a job description, how are you going to discipline or train an individual to say, hey, you're doing this, this, and this, but you haven't quite mastered this part or this duty or this responsibility. So it helps in disciplinary matters. And then also, again, as I said before, any type of litigation, if anyone has ever been charged with any kind of EEO charge or whatever, still a civil suit as well, job descriptions are sometimes asked in the when they are, getting the gathering all the information. Job descriptions are something that is asked for, so it helps in any type of litigation.
Okay, you just mentioned EEO. Will you, again, I know you mentioned it earlier in our conversation, but again, mention who they are and kind of what they oversee, just so everyone knows.
Okay, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has been in the Equal Employment Act, has, and that's under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, defines, is really discrimination, harassment. The Pregnancy Act is also an amendment to that. And the commission is the organization that employees can go to file a claim against their employer. The EEOC does some other things, but they take those charges and they respond to them. Now there's a backlog of cases. So the EEOC has established a mediation process that if the employer would agree, if there's a claim filed against them, they agree to mediation. That kind of saves the EEOC from taking it further to the courts. Mm-hmm. They typically only handle class action suits, but they will, if they feel true discrimination has been occurred, that they will advise the employee that they can file a civil claim against them, and then the employee can go to an attorney. And if the employee wins, then the employer is spending lots of money. Even when the charge is first filed, getting one of those charges, the paperwork involved in gathering the information is very costly to an employer. So you want to avoid that. You want to do everything in your power to avoid any type of litigation. Other thing I want to say about that, if as an employer you get one of those letters from the EEOC, you get yourself an employment attorney right away and represent you, because there's certain time limits that you have to respond, and you don't want to take that on yourself. You want to have somebody who's trained and an expert in that. Just like you want an HR person to write your job descriptions, mm-hmm. You want an attorney to help you with any type of EEOC charge.
I did work with a business owner through an EEOC charge. We came out victorious because the requirement was a requirement to do the job and all of that. But at the time, it was a lot of follow-up, a lot of paperwork, a lot of,
very costly to the employer, even when you win. Mm-hmm. Because you do want to have an attorney on your side to make sure you're doing everything right, to prove that you were doing everything right, and it costs you.
I also want to point out that you said there's a backlog there. And so if you're not keeping up with what happens, keeping your, edits of the job description that you gave that employee, like you want to keep those things, because when the backlog comes up in 6 months and they're asking you about an employee that may not be with you anymore, you got to be able to answer those questions.
Exactly. That's why you keep your documentation. You don't want to, you want to follow the rules of keeping everything. I always recommend keep everything for 7 years, because some require a year, some require 3 years. However, some require 7 years. And so if you've not kept your documentation, some people may disagree with me, but I feel it's better to be safe than sorry, and you've got it. And with electronic filing now, things can be stored electronically, and it's very inexpensive to store electronically. You don't need rooms and rooms of file cabinets.
I'm assuming 7 years is the longest amount of time among the states out there. And so might as well go with the most strictest so you're covered.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. What are the biggest mistakes you've seen in job descriptions when people bring you on and say, I have these job descriptions, but I need you to help me clean them up or fix them? What are the biggest mistakes you see that people often make?
They're incomplete. They're not detailed enough. They're missing something that will get them in trouble. So, you want to make sure you've covered everything. You want to, and I always say job descriptions are living documents. They can change. If you are to change it, then, you want to make sure that the individual whose job has changed, they see the new job description and they sign off on it. So you've got proof. That's another thing I didn't bring up before, that having job descriptions, one of the requirements would be that people sign off saying, I have received a copy of my job description, I've read it, and I understand it. because that will protect you that later on, if there's any type of litigation and they'll say, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. You signed this document saying you read the job description, and here's the job description that says you have to do this. So yes, lacking the detail will be the one thing. And then the other thing is maybe making a statement that could be discriminatory. You want to make sure the language in the document doesn't say, male required, heavy lifting, required to lift 80 pounds, must be a man, that kind of thing.
There was a recent story about a museum that got in trouble for this. They wanted someone of a certain race to protect their art. And so, yeah, they used the wrong language, and it was totally discriminatory because it eliminated everybody else that wasn't part of that race.
On the other hand, there are times when it is required. I do the HR and payroll for a school of autistic children, and the school goes from pre-K all the way to 12th grade. Well, they have, boys and girls in the school. It's co-ed. And so the older boys had a male teacher. And when the kids would go on field trips and stuff, the teacher would need to accompany the boys into the restroom to make sure everything was okay. And so when that teacher resigned and they needed to replace them, they were concerned about putting in that the position had to be a male. But it was a bona fide requirement because of the fact that it was teaching male boys, high school age boys, that would require a male teacher. So there are legitimate times when you can require things, but then you really have to say, is this really the case? I remember one of the questions on my certification exam was, when can you actually require a male or female? And it was a locker room attendant for a male professional sports team. Well, maybe you could have females now, but when I took the exam years ago, it was, you would expect that you could ask for a male to be a locker room attendant for a professional male athletic team.
Totally makes sense there. Yeah. Okay. Any last tips, tricks about job descriptions?
Well, my biggest thing is don't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's when you get yourself in trouble. I always say, would you go to the dentist? Would you try and fill your own tooth when you have a cavity? Now you go to the dentist. So why would you write job descriptions when you know your business? You are gifted in your business and what you do. If it's not an area that you're familiar with, get the consultants. Just like TrainerTainment, it's better to use trainers to help with your organization to learn. It's better to have an HR professional help you with your job description.
And I'm assuming you can just hire an HR professional for this project, let's say. And then how often would one need to have that reviewed? So let's say in March of 2021, I get all my job descriptions really updated. They're to the letter of the law for right now. I know that they're living documents. So as jobs change, you want to add those requirements. But really, how often should I do a real good audit or analysis of those job descriptions to make sure they're still complying with all of the?
I would say every couple of years. For People First, in fact, we just tweaked our administrative assistant job description because we're looking to fill a position. And so I kind of went through all of them, and they were written in 2019, and here it is 2021. So I would say every couple of years you want to have somebody review them and make sure they're accurate, they have the right titles, that they're reporting to the right position, because the business has changed, and so as businesses change, you want to make sure you're keeping up with that. And that would help if you looked at them every 2 years, you might have forgotten that you made a change here or there. So.
Or that you created a position that may not have existed prior, and you may not have had to hire outside for it, so you didn't think about a job description. It just kind of organically turned into a specific position that you don't have a job description for.
Well, I encourage every employee who may be watching this to also say, I want a copy of my job description. And if they can't get one, that's a sign the organization needs to get themselves updated. Awesome.
Well, this is a ton of information. So, Barb, thank you for your time. There is a signature question, though.
Yes.
So Barb, you've answered it before, so it may have changed, but what are you doing these days to grow yourself and others?
I like to take advantage of every opportunity that I can get. With COVID, there's a lot of virtual training now that more than ever. In the old days, well, not the old days, but before COVID, you might have to travel somewhere to take a wonderful course. Now I've taken advantage of a lot of TrainerTainment courses because not only are they talking about training, they're talking about leadership and management and how you run your business and setting goals and so webinars, a lot of reading, and also because of my certifications, I'm required to get CEUs, and so that was the best thing that I ever did was get certified because you can get lazy. Oh, I've got this job to do. I've got to do this for this client. I can't take the class and you just blow it off. Well, now with my certification, and I do also have an insurance license, I need those CEUs to keep those certifications because I never want to go through those exams again. So anyway, so that's very helpful too. So going to workshops, I go to an annual HR conference, whether it be the national or our state conference here in Florida. I come back with so much information and it just sparks new ideas. But I do have to share that TrainerTainment has been the biggest learning experience for me since I've been involved with them. I've gotten the goal setting, I've gotten the quarterly meetings, the annual planning, those weekly meetings that we have. That has been a tremendous help to me and has helped my business succeed, grow, and do even better than it was before COVID. And I do have TrainerTainment to thank for that. So,
well, thank you. I know that you've been working real hard to work in your gift and the thing that lights you up and not on the tedious things that kind of drain you. And we all have those things.
Yeah. We do have to do them sometimes. Yeah. But if we can delegate to others on those things, and it may be the passion of those folks to do the things that drain us. So it's finding the right people who have the right passions that help balance the organization.
Yep, that's why an organization needs all those personality types we learned about at the personality workshop a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
All right, Barb, I'm sure people are going to have questions about this. So where would you like people to find you if they're seeking some advice in this area?
We do have a website. It's peoplefirstinc.com. You can certainly you can check us out there and reach out to me there. And also actually through TrainerTainment, anytime you might need something, if you forget who I am or you say, hey, that HR person that spoke on ThinkTank, who is that? TrainerTainment. And so I actually have an email with TrainerTainment. It's Barbara@TrainerTainment.net.
Yes, she does.
So a lot of different ways to reach us, but yeah, our website might be the best place so you can really see what we offer and what we can do for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today. I can't wait to have you back next quarter. Remember, you're coming back once a quarter as not only a TrainerTainment member, but as a digital sponsor as well. You get once a quarter. So there's lots of things in the HR that I think people just don't think about. That's what I think. And this is what Thursdays are for, that time for thinking.
Yeah. And if there's any questions or want to have a particular topic, email us and we'll be happy to put together something.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you again to our 2021 sponsors. If you have an idea for Think Tank, I would love to have you in the tank. All you have to do is email me, Candy, Candi, @TrainerTainment.net, and we will get you on here to talk about whatever it is that is on your mind. We have an event coming up on April 1st. We have a webinar that is a Thursday. It's always Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time, and it's a performance leadership webinar. It's free. I'll put a link out there for everyone to get there. And so we hope to see you there. And until next time, hope you guys have an awesome week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.